All right, guys, so today we're going to do 3.6, which is types of triangles. Our goal is to name the types of triangles by their sides and their angles, and to make sure that we can set up proper equations and proofs using these vocabulary terms that we're learning about. So the first thing we're going to talk about is making sure we're able to name triangles by their side lengths. So I'm sure you've heard these terms before, but there are three ways to name a triangle by their side lengths. There's a scalene triangle, so if we just know the side lengths, we can call it scalene if none of the sides are congruent. So for example, if you see a triangle, this side is 7, this side is 3, and I don't know, this side is 5. Okay, we know that that is a scalene triangle. The second type of triangle that you can name by its side is called an isosceles triangle. And an isosceles triangle has at least 2 congruent sides. Okay, so let me draw this. I'm going to draw mine kind of like this, so it doesn't look exactly correct, or exactly like all of them are equal. So we're going to call this A, B, and C. Okay, it would be isosceles if 2 sides, for example those, are congruent to each other. Okay, if those 2 sides are congruent to each other. If you know those 2 sides are congruent to each other, the base angles would also be congruent to each other. Okay, so the angles opposite, or the angles touching the base, if that's how you want to go with it. So the base is the side that is the only side that is not congruent to the 2, and the other 2 sides we refer to as the legs. So we call these the legs. So the base angles would be angle A because it's touching the base, and angle C. Okay, and because those 2 legs are congruent, the base angles would also be congruent to each other. Okay, so the base angles are angle A and angle C. The legs are called AB and BC. Those are your congruent parts. And the vertex angle is angle B. So we call this angle B the vertex angle. And the last way to name a triangle by its side lengths is saying that it's an equilateral triangle. And if it is an equilateral triangle, that means all of the sides are equal. So this side equals this side equals this side. So you might see tick marks, you might see numbers 5, 5, and 5, but all of the sides are congruent. Which segues me into the next section, which is naming a triangle by its angles. The first type is called an equiangular triangle, and that's when all the angles are equal. So again, I'm going to draw the same kind of triangles I did above, except instead of having tick marks on the sides, you are now going to have tick marks on the angles. So this is called equiangular. Because all the angles are congruent to each other, to find the measure of one angle, we would divide that equally into 3. So if it's equiangular triangle, all of the angles would measure 60 degrees, no matter what, okay? So all of the angles in an equiangular triangle would measure 60 degrees. The next type of triangle that we can name would be an acute triangle. Again, we're looking at its angles now. So an acute triangle has all of the angles that are acute. For example, 40 degrees, 60 degrees, and 80 degrees. All of these angles are acute. They are all less than 90 degrees. Okay, so that's an example of an acute triangle. Then we have our right triangle. Okay, our right triangle. I'm including the word triangle because I know you guys know what a right angle is, but do you know what a right triangle is? So a right triangle is a triangle with one right angle. A triangle with one right angle. So I'm going to draw one right here. So if you saw a triangle that looks like this, okay, that is a right triangle because there is one right angle. The hypotenuse is the side that is across from the right angle. So hypotenuse across from right angle. And in this case, The hypotenuse is going to be AC. So this is my hypotenuse. The legs are the ones that are actually touching the right angle. Legs and legs. And in this case, it is AB and BC. Okay, and then the last way to name a triangle by its angles is called an obtuse triangle. An obtuse triangle. So again, if one of the angles is obtuse, keep in mind you cannot have more than one angle obtuse. So let's say this is 100, this is 30, and this is 50. As long as one of the angles measures obtuse, we call this an obtuse triangle. Again, if you notice this second part right here, this is how you name triangles by its angles. Okay, part 1 up here is how you name a triangle by its side lengths.